Welcome to Headphone News, Montreal edition for Tuesday, November 19th, 2024.
Dismantling of homeless encampment in Montreal. Quebec's Transport Ministry has announced plans to dismantle a homeless encampment on Notre Dame Street in Montreal. The eviction is set for November 21, 2024. More than 100 people currently live in this encampment made up of several tents. Authorities are urging residents to gather their belongings and leave before the cleanup begins. This decision has raised concerns about available shelter for those who will be displaced and underscores the ongoing challenges of homelessness in the city.
Canada Post workers strike for better conditions. On November 15, 2024, about 55,000 Canada Post employees went on strike across Canada. They are represented by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, or CUPW. Workers are seeking better wages and safer working conditions after a year of unsuccessful negotiations. Many employees believe their pay has not kept up with rising inflation. Canada Post has warned that mail and parcels will not be processed during the strike, leading to significant service disruptions. This strike underscores ongoing labor rights issues and the economic pressures faced by employees at Canada Post.
Montreal study shows nature benefits children's mental health. A recent study from Montreal, Quebec, shows that spending 2 hours a week in nature can greatly improve mental health in children aged 10 to 12. The research involved 1,000 school children from 33 primary schools located near green spaces. Conducted over 3 months in the spring of 2023, half of the students participated in outdoor lessons that included activities aimed at enhancing mental well-being. Teachers noted that children who face challenges such as anxiety, depression, and aggressive behavior experienced significant improvements in calmness and focus during class. These findings highlight the positive effects of nature on children's mental health and suggest that incorporating outdoor activities can help kids struggling with serious issues. This study supports the idea that providing access to natural environments can boost children's well-being in schools. The results of the research were published in the JAMA Network Open, a well-respected medical journal, underlining the increasing recognition of nature-based interventions as effective strategies for addressing youth mental health concerns.
Montreal residents take legal action against city over bike paths. The Coalition for Democracy Montreal has launched a lawsuit against the City of Montreal. This legal action aims to halt the construction of bike paths that residents claim have drastically reduced important parking spaces in their neighborhoods. The coalition argues that hundreds of parking spots have been eliminated along Corbus Avenue, creating serious difficulties for local families and businesses. After raising $32,000 through fundraising efforts, the group is now seeking an additional $60,000 to proceed with the legal battle. Residents have reported spending up to 45 minutes searching for parking due to these changes. The coalition insists on the need for meaningful discussions with city officials about urban planning that considers the needs of all community members.
Formula One moves Canadian Grand Prix to May. Formula One will move the Canadian Grand Prix to May starting in 2026. The race will now be held on the 3rd or 4th weekend of May each year in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. This change aims to reduce travel challenges and lower environmental impact. Formula One officials reached this decision with input from race promoters and Canadian authorities. President Stefano Domenicali expressed appreciation to the Canadian organizers for their support in this transition. The new schedule works better with other races, allowing teams to travel more efficiently. This year's Canadian Grand Prix is taking place on June 9th, while next year's race is set for June 15th. Approval from the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, FIA, the sport's governing body, is still needed for this adjustment.
Canada Post strike disrupts small businesses in Montreal. On November 15, 2024, a nationwide strike began involving 55,000 Canada Post workers, represented by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, or CUP. This strike has created significant challenges for small businesses, particularly for Baltic Club in Montreal, Quebec. This local business specializes in stationery and home decor and heavily relies on timely deliveries from Canada Post for essential materials. The strike has halted production at Baltic Club, leading to frustration among customers eager for products during the busy holiday shopping season. CEO Bryce Salmon reported that vital shipments became stuck due to the strike, forcing the company to make a long drive to retrieve materials and resume production. Co-founder Melanie Willett noted that in previous years, the business depended on Canada Post for shipping, emphasizing the carrier's importance for reaching both Canadian and U.S. markets. The strike has sparked discussions about Canada Post services compared to alternatives like FedEx, Purolator, and UPS, which some businesses believe offer faster and more efficient delivery options. Concerns about delays may threaten the trust that small businesses have built with customers as they prepare for the holiday season. Coop stated that the strike is a last resort after unsuccessful negotiations over the past year for fair wages and better working conditions. Federal Labor Minister Stephen McKinnon is mediating the situation, stressing the urgency of resolving the matter as the holiday shopping period approaches.
Evictions in Montreal as winter approaches. As winter arrives in Montreal, Quebec's Transport Ministry has issued eviction notices to homeless individuals living in tents along Notre Dame Street East. The notices, delivered on November 18, 2024, require residents to leave the provincially owned land by November 23, 2024. This area near the St. Lawrence River has hosted many encampments since the COVID-19 pandemic began, highlighting ongoing issues with housing. Officials have raised concerns about fire hazards and unsanitary conditions as reasons for the evictions. One local resident, living there with about a dozen others, expressed worries about the lack of safe housing options. City councillors Sauve and Cessaville are set to propose a state of emergency for homelessness at City Hall, aiming to mobilize resources to provide shelter before the cold weather sets in. Currently, shelters in Montreal offer 1,835 spaces, which is more than last year yet insufficient to meet the increasing demand.
Study questions use of anticoagulants for young patients. A recent study from the Montreal Heart Institute in Canada raises concerns about the effectiveness of anticoagulants in young patients with atrial fibrillation. Researchers found that these medications do not significantly lower the risk of cognitive decline or stroke in patients under 65 who lack other cardiovascular risk factors. Dr. Lena Rivard, who led the study, reported that fewer than 20% of participants experienced a slight decline in cognitive scores over an average follow-up of 3.7 years. These findings suggest a need to reconsider current treatment approaches, focusing more on lifestyle changes for young patients. The results were shared at a recent meeting of the American Heart Association in Chicago.
Hate crimes in Ottawa's Chinatown. On November 18, 2024, Ottawa police announced charges against a 32-year-old man named Kevin Belisle following 3 separate assaults in Chinatown on November 17. The assaults occurred in the evening at 3 different locations. 2 victims sustained minor injuries, while 1 victim suffered serious injuries and required hospitalization. Authorities believe these attacks were motivated by hate since all the victims were of Asian descent. The investigation is ongoing, and police stress the importance of addressing hate crimes in the community.
Ontario proposes bill to close supervised consumption sites. On November 18, 2024, the Ontario government in Canada introduced a bill to close 10 supervised consumption sites that are too close to schools and daycares. Health Minister Sylvia Jones stated that there will be no new safe injection sites in the province. This change marks a shift from harm reduction strategies to an abstinence-based approach for treating addiction. The government plans to open 19 new homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hubs, referred to as heart hubs, and to build 375 supportive housing units, with a budget of $378 million Canadian. Critics are concerned that closing these consumption sites could lead to more fatalities among people struggling with addiction.
Kawaii Festival launches in Montreal. Montreal is set to host its first Kawaii Festival on November 18, 2024. This celebration highlights Kawaii culture from Japan, which is all about cuteness in various forms like art, fashion, and food. Festival goers can look forward to fun activities, including claw machines filled with plush toys and the chance to taste traditional mochi rice cakes. The event strives to create an authentic experience that mirrors what visitors would find in Japan. Festivals like this can greatly enhance the local economy by attracting visitors and supporting local businesses.
Winter fun at Old Port of Montreal. The Old Port of Montreal, located in Quebec, Canada, has announced an exciting lineup of winter activities for 2024. The MTL zipline will remain open until December 15th, giving visitors a chance to enjoy thrilling rides before the winter season fully arrives. The outdoor skating rink opens on December 14th, offering a popular winter pastime. Dining experiences on the Bateau Mouche Montreal will be available until March 1st, featuring cozy dinners along the picturesque port. On New Year's Eve, Igloofest will present free concerts and fireworks at Jacques Cartier Pier from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. Additionally, Igloofest will host DJ performances every Friday night from January 10th to February 14th, spotlighting both local and international music talent. The Boda Boda Spa, a floating spa on the St. Lawrence River, will remain open throughout the winter, providing a relaxing getaway. A new Café Van Hout will open by the end of November, and the Montreal Science Center will offer holiday programming from December 27th to January 6th. Last summer, the Old Port welcomed over 4.6 million visitors, seeing a 15% increase in tourism compared to the previous year.
Canada Post strike enters fifth day amidst ongoing negotiations. The strike by Canada Post workers continues into its fifth day, with around 55,000 employees walking off the job. This labor action is causing major disruptions to postal services during the peak holiday season. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers is demanding a 24% wage increase over 4 years, while Canada Post has only offered an 11.5% increase. Negotiations are still in progress, and a special mediator has been appointed by the government to assist both sides. This situation raises concerns about economic impacts, particularly for businesses that depend on timely deliveries.
Fraud suspect arrested in Laval, Quebec. A 19-year-old woman named Anastasia Tatarou was arrested by Laval police in Quebec, Canada, for allegedly defrauding senior citizens. Victims received phone calls from someone impersonating a financial institution employee, claiming that their bank cards had been compromised. The suspect persuaded seniors to place their bank cards in an envelope and leave them in their mailboxes. Tatarou faces multiple charges, including fraud over $5,000, which equals about $3,734 US. Authorities reported around 30 cases of similar fraud in the area, with about 10 possibly linked to Tatarou. Her court case is set to resume on January 15, 2025. The public is reminded to never share personal banking information with strangers to help prevent these scams.
Human smuggler receives new passport in Canada. The Singaraysan Razia, a known human smuggler, was issued a new passport by the Canadian government, despite being ordered by the court to surrender it. This passport was found during a search by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police at his home in Montreal. Razia had previously pleaded guilty to charges related to the illegal smuggling of a person into Canada and was under strict conditions, including wearing an electronic ankle bracelet while awaiting sentencing. Concerns have been raised about the effectiveness of Canada's passport system, especially after Razia's rearrest for allegedly heading an international smuggling operation linked to tragic drowning incidents. Lawmakers are now calling for a thorough review of passport policies to improve security and prevent future occurrences.
That is all the news for today. Thank you for listening to today's Headphone News. News summary brought to you by AI.